What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Corporate Bartender. Holy cow. Today's episode is one of my favorites of 2023 so far. We're talking remote work, corporate culture, GitHub, Netflix, and breaking down boundaries. We've got Barbie Brewer on the program today, and the conversation is just epic. If you don't know Barbie, we got you, boo. Barbie's the author of the best-selling book Lead and Let Live. She's been a fixture in the Silicon Valley scene since the dot-com era. She's been Chief Culture Officer at GitLab, VP of Talent at Netflix, and she's got a lot to say about remote work and how to leverage it. This conversation was fantastic, and I think you're going to dig it. So buckle up, TCBers, grab your favorite cocktail, and let's get right on into it with Barbie Brewer on today's TCB.
Welcome to SkyTeam's The Corporate Bartender, where we gather some of the best HR and people leaders to discuss what's happening on the people side of business. Now pull up a stool, belly up to the bar, and join us for The Corporate Bartender.
Welcome, everybody. It is your favorite day and mine. It's Wednesday. It's Corporate Bartender Day. Today is the 5th of July, and it is the 172nd time we have convened this group of awesome people. Today's going to be a fun day. We've got a guest with us today. You can see Barbie here, Barbie Brewer. She's our guest. She's the one face in the Brady Bunch screen that you don't know. We're going to chat with her about her book, Lead and Let Live. We'll get into her thoughts on remote work and maybe see if we can get her to tell us a Netflix story or two. Then at the end, we'll do our funny things, our good feels, our cocktail stuff, and get on with our lives. As you know, if you've been a listener from any point in time since last year, every week I ask, because I'm a pain in the ass, if you have not bought your copy of You, Me, We, Why We All Need a Friend at Work and How to Show Up as One, please do so. Audiobook is available now. If you do have a copy and you have not written a review, please consider doing that for us, because rumor has it that some weird Amazon magic happens when we get to 100 reviews, and we are creeping ever slowly toward that mark. And I'm just curious to see what happens when we get there. Apparently algorithm magic happens and things change. I don't know.
I think it's like
maybe
those Facebook posts. You know, those Facebook posts, like if you post this, you know, a unicorn will run across your screen or something. I think that's what's going to happen.
So you mean nothing happens. Yeah. We've got some guests upcoming. On July 18th, consultant Andrew Bartlow will be here. He's the co-author of a book called Scaling for Success, People Priorities for High Growth Organizations. He's about changing HR. That's going to be a good one. We have the twice rescheduled Alain Hunkins, our good buddy and author of Cracking the Leadership Code. He'll be here on July 19th. But with that, let's get on into our conversation, and let's give a good, warm TCB welcome to Barbie Brewer, everybody. We dance everybody on, Barbie. That's kind of how we do it here.
Mark even came back on camera to dance. It's pretty good.
Welcome, Barbie. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So when we start with guests, because many of us didn't choose the career path that we were on when we were 8 years old, and someone asked us what we wanted to be. I mean, I guess it's saving, first responders and astronauts and doctors, maybe. But I don't imagine that you thought yourself this leadership expert, this person who would write a best-selling book about working and leading. How did you get here? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
You know, that's a great question, and you used a perfect age for me to begin the story. So when I was in second grade and 8 years old, my parents got called into the school to meet with the school psychologist to talk about me because of how I answered that question. So when they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I said I wanted to be a forensic pathologist and a model. I wanted to be a modeling forensic pathologist. I don't know why. This is what I wanted to be.
I mean, those things go together. It's like peanut butter and jelly, really.
Yeah,
those
well,
things
you know,
are perfect.
my mom named me Barbie. That's not even short for Barbara. She actually named me that. So she gave me a complex. I love you, Mom. But when I said forensic pathologist, it worried the school administrators because this was pre CSI and this was pre Bones, and like, why does this young girl want to dissect dead people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that worried them. And so they got to do a nice little child study on me, and it turned out that it was really an artifact of my father being a CFO for a hospital. And so I had heard a lot about him, about complaining about malpractice insurance and, you know, all kinds of things that were annoying him as a hospital administrator. But I also wanted to be a doctor. So I thought, well, you know, if I open dead people, they can't sue me. I don't have to worry about killing my patients. I don't have to worry about insurance.
That is pragmatic thinking for an 8-year-old.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but I can still operate. And so I should mention I was sent to one of those annoying nerd schools where you did do a lot of dissection too. So by the time I was 8, I already dissected a heart, a brain, and eye. So
Wow.
I had been exposed to that. So it didn't seem that crazy to me. So I didn't get committed. They let me stay in school. But yeah, so no, I didn't say I wanted to go into HR.
I mean, we've done a bunch of these, and I've yet to meet someone who said at 8 years old, "I'm going to head HR for an organization. That is my dream job." So I can't wait for the day that happens. We'll have some sort of party.
Well, we'll have to have my nephew on your show. My nephew has followed in my footsteps, and he might have said that when he was 8 years old.
Oh,
That's awesome.
so
yeah.
did you become a pathologist? Did you go to medical school?
I
No.
failed in my life goals. Yeah. I ended up, you know, going through school, following the path. I went into marketing first. And then from marketing, I went into recruiting. And then from recruiting, I went into HR. So that's really how I got to where I am. I can't say I ever had a goal to become the head of HR. There's pros and cons to that position. And the position that I hold now.
Lori is one of those right now. So
yeah, Lori, we can talk one-on-one sometime. Yeah. And I love my job, but you know, it gets challenging, I think, more challenging as time goes on. And so I love the role, but I would kind of say I fell into it and grew up with it and didn't really question the path I was taking and just kind of held on for the ride.
Awesome. You worked at some cool places along your path. Tell us a little bit about where you are now and some of the marquee stops along your way.
So I'm at Safe Security now, which is a cyber risk quantification and management company. So we're kind of trying to help the digital space be safer and for you to understand your risks.
May the odds be ever in your favor, Barbie.
Thank you. Thank you. We've got a lot of employees in India. We've got employees in the US, Australia, the UK. So we're still, I would call us hybrid. The folks that we have in India go into the office about 3 times a week. Here in the US, we try to get together occasionally, but not on a daily basis or anything like that. Prior to this, you know, I've been with some different companies that some of you have heard of and probably some of you haven't. So GitLab was my first remote company. So I was doing remote before remote was cool, when really no one else was doing it. But GitLab was a company that had about, when I joined, 250 employees in about 40 countries. Wow. And by the time I left, we were closer to 1,000 employees in 60 countries. And no office building whatsoever, no WeWork space, nothing. Wow. It was an all remote company. Prior to GitLab, I had spent 6 years at Netflix, so that's probably one you've heard of, and loved Netflix. And I was telling Eric earlier that I've never worked with such high talent density and such a great group of people. I think it's the easiest HR job I've ever had because every leader knew it was their job to be a good manager. And that means managing performance, and that means hiring the right people, and that means giving feedback. So that wasn't HR's job. That was every manager's job, right? And they were good at it. They didn't get promoted because they were a good programmer. They got promoted because they knew how to recruit. They knew how to give feedback. They knew how to set expectations. So that was great. Prior to Netflix, there was IBM, there was Cisco, there were some other names that people might be familiar with. What's fun about working at Safe Security is I get to work with John Chambers again, and I love John too. I always say the two best leaders I've worked with are probably Reed and John,
Wow.
and so I get to be connected with John Chambers again through Safe. Yeah,
that's not a bad set of company to keep.
Socket's the CEO of Safe, and he says that that's a good bar he's going to try to reach, and he's definitely going for it.
So John Chambers, Cisco, is that?
Yeah. He was the CEO of Cisco, but he now has a venture fund. Mm-hmm. So we're part of Safe is part of his investments.
Yeah,
that's
got
awesome.
it. Cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you've got this expertise. You've been an HR leader in various capacities. Not many HR leaders go, hey, you know what? I'm actually going to write that book. So what compelled you to actually follow through on and create Lead and Let Live?
My agent, but really, I went through a health crisis, and it was when I left Netflix and joined GitLab. So I was diagnosed with a very rare sarcoma that 1 in a million are diagnosed with. And so it was hard to find anyone who knew how to treat it well. Went on chemo for a year when I was being treated at Stanford. That wiped me out, but I didn't want to stop working. But I couldn't keep doing the long commute. Netflix, as wonderful as it was, I was always in a foreign country, so I wasn't at home much. And so it was a wake-up call for me that I have to make a choice of what's important in life. Am I important? Is my health important? Are my kids important? The time with them, which at that point I thought was limited. So at that point, I started writing letters to my kids for every phase of their life that I wouldn't be there for. So the sarcoma was resting on the left lobe of my lung, and it was an aggressive one. And so I wrote these letters, not, I guess, like a mom, but more like an HR person, so you can all sympathize with my kids now, and my husband. But it was really more about, these are the phases in your life that you're going to go through, much less than ages, right? So, and then what skills, what I wish for you as you go through these things, what I hope you learn from them, and kind of trying to teach that resiliency in things. And so it almost became a leadership book if you just started reading all these letters. So as you read the book, it won't feel like letters to my kids at all, but that's what got me realizing I can write. So I'm a reader. I love to read, a couple books a month. Love to ingest, but I had never transmitted the written word really, and never felt I was good at it. It'd be easier today because I could use like Bard or ChatGPT, but when I wrote it, I didn't have those options. But it gave me the courage that I could. And so I went ahead and went through with it. And you'll see it's not a big book. It's not a heavy read. It's a light read. It's a quick read. And it really combines life and leadership, because that's what work is. It's not work-life balance. It's finding a job that fits within your life. Not fitting I don't think it's good to fit your life within your job. You need to find a job that you can fit within your life. And so that's really what I've tried to accomplish with the book, is to really inspire people, inspire leaders, either current or future, to lead differently and to really think about things differently as they're growing their leadership skills. And even if you're already a CEO of a company, really think, how can I be better? And how can I think about this differently?
That's great. I love that. We're big fans of the work-life blend, not balance, because it just doesn't compute, really. It's how does it all fit together?
Yeah, there's only one of me. It shows up to work, it shows up at home. There's only one.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, when you think about that, the idea, we talk about corporate culture all the time. It's a word that gets bandied about quite frequently. What does healthy company culture mean? What does that look like for you, Barbie? What has to be in it for it to be healthy?
For me personally, and again, keep in mind this comes from a very biased perspective of a SaaS HR person, not manufacturing, not medical, so keep that in mind. To me, it has to be a culture that does have transparency, that recognizes that your leaders don't always have all the right answers, But if you don't empower people to have the information, you don't empower them to have the solution. And you're asking them to come up with ideas with incomplete information. So knowledge is power. And do you want your whole company to be powerful, or do you want only a few people to be powerful? And so that transparency is important to me. And you can do it if you have a high bar for talent and good talent density, and you kind of make everyone an insider for insider trading. So that's one of the things too. You know, for Netflix, for example, every single employee was an insider, so we all had the blackout periods. We all had that is also important if you want to have full transparency to do that as well. But that is important to me. The other thing that's important to me is really the radical candor and the candid feedback, and you could say this is part of transparency, but don't say things about people that you wouldn't say to them. And that doesn't mean you've already said it to them. You might need to come talk to me about how to have a difficult conversation. That's good. Let's talk it out, but then have the conversation. So don't say it if you wouldn't say it to them, and think about how to be constructive and kind when you're giving people critical feedback, right? But withholding it, I think, is a crime. Really, I mean, you're letting someone continue to fail without giving them the tools they might need to succeed. So I think that's very important to me from a corporate culture perspective.
So you're sparking a thought here. We do a lot of work in technology companies, and technology companies writ large, not the best feedback cultures, right? Because the comment you made earlier is a phenomenon in many a tech company. I'm a really good developer, then I get to be a manager as a reward for being a really good developer. And I don't like having difficult conversations, so I tend to put them off. How do you inspire those for whom this doesn't come naturally to step into that space and get comfortable with that? Because I agree with you. It is an underpinning of a healthy organizational culture. And I've worked in startups, 100, 200 person organizations where the momentum was just around conflict avoidance. And it was like turning an oil tanker to get that to be different.
It is. So I have a lot of, there's no one thing to turn this around, and you can't do it just one-on-one. You have to do it for the whole organization. So everyone needs to be prepared that we're going to do things differently. And so I have a training I do that, there's lots of trainings out there and frameworks out there, but I have a training I do specifically around, let's get all on the same page, that we're going to stop talking about people, we're going to talk to them. So it's not how to give it, it's on how to receive it, but it's also imparting kind of like, it's your responsibility to, and it's also your heads up of, expect you to get more from people. So don't be thrown off now that you're getting more feedback that you're suddenly doing things worse. It just means that we're making the investment now. I don't typically refer to feedback as a gift. I know that's the common nomenclature for referring to feedback as a gift. Gifts are typically bought for occasions. We rarely go to the store and say, I want to make Lori happy today, I'm going to buy her a car, right? It's Lori's birthday. What am I going to get her? And usually as we're walking through shops in the middle of the year, when's your birthday, Lori?
October.
So I might be walking through a shop in July and think, oh, Lori might really like that. Oh, but her birthday's not until October. So I wait. And then October comes and I can't remember what that thing I saw that Lori liked was. Yeah. Right? We all do that around Christmas time, or 100%. The holidays that we buy for. So that's not how feedback should be. Feedback is an investment in someone else. And when you want to invest in something, you put your money in when you think it can go up. Right? When you decide to invest in that something because you think that investment will help make it go up and there'll be a bigger return, right? Now, it's not to say that you're going to get a great return if my performance goes up. My performance might not affect your quality of life, but it really is you deciding, okay, here's where someone needs an insertion, needs an investment, and I need to help make that investment in them. So what I tell people is when you're not getting feedback, be afraid that no one wants to invest in you anymore. And go and solicit that feedback. And don't consider it like I'm perfect, no one's giving me any critical feedback. Really consider it as like, I'm not getting any. Does that mean that people don't think I have any more up level potential, right? Yeah. And even a CEO needs that. And so what I also talk about a lot, and I talk about in the book, is that those behaviors and those skills that got us to leadership are not the same ones that make us good leaders. And guess what? Our blast radius is much bigger now if we're not good.
Yeah.
So it's the worst time to stop investing in me. Now that I've gotten to leadership, right? You need to still give me feedback and try not to be afraid of that. So the next thing, you do the training, you talk about it, you try to help people understand how important it is, and then you model it. So your leaders I have to be okay going in front of a company all hand and saying, I got feedback today after my last presentation that I talked too fast and it's hard to understand me. I'm going to try to get better at that. It's important I do, because if I can't be understood, there's no point to talk anyway. So please, if I'm talking too fast, please raise your hand. Please interrupt me. Please ask me to slow down, because it's important to me that you can understand me. And so I'm working on that, right? It's important that as a leader, I can share where I'm vulnerable or where I'm weak at. And that then in turn makes people more comfortable in giving me more feedback, because they think I'll listen to it, right? And they'll think I take it seriously. And that's a minor example that I use. There's tougher ones. I stress tested SAFE before I joined. So during the interview process, I wasn't thinking I really wanted to go in-house again. I was thinking consult. SAFE reached out, and it sounded like I liked the space because I think it's important. And with all the new regulations coming around cybersecurity and risk, I think we could be a quite successful company. But I didn't want to work for a CEO that wasn't still willing to learn and grow. So as part of the interview process, I interviewed with John Chambers. And the CEO, Saket, was also in that same meeting with me. So we were on a Zoom, and it was John, me, and Saket. And John asked me the question of, why wouldn't you accept the offer? Like, what's a detractor for you? I said,
the preemptive ask.
Yeah. And I said, well, John, I everything looks good, but I do have some nervousness around whether or not Saket, who's sitting here listening to everything I'm saying, is going to be receptive to feedback and still is learning. He's young. This is his first company he started. I've been there and done that. I want to make sure that he's someone who can understand that as the company grows, he needs to grow too. And so, John, you've been working with Saket, you mentor him. What do you think? Right. And so I stress tested a little bit that wouldn't offend Saket, that I had called him out. Then I stress tested it more when I flew out to India the next day to meet with the team. And it was an offsite with everyone at the company. And Saket's on stage talking. And he said something in a way that we wouldn't say things today, right? So using some old words, and I won't call it what it was, but I raised my hand in front of all 200 employees, and I corrected him.
Oh. And how did that go?
And
how did he
that was another stress test for me of like, is this a good place for me? One, I should explain why I did that. There's an idea of public praise, private criticism, right? But when a leader uses a word that you don't want anyone else in the company using, you've got to correct that publicly. Otherwise, if I say, I've done it before too, where I've used the wrong word, and if you correct me privately, everyone thinks, well, HR uses it, so it must be right.
Right.
So you've got to correct me publicly on that, right? So, and it went great. He was fine with it. He wasn't like, don't want to hire this woman. He wasn't defensive on stage. But modeling that you can do that to the CEO is super important. So finding people in your organization that feel that it's safe enough to find those moments to show that that your CEO can get feedback. It wasn't just about the word. It was about the whole organization seeing it was okay. I didn't get fired.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's that modeling is the showing the vulnerability, the modeling it, and then building the muscle. Right. So I'll do exercises where we'll do speed dating feedback, or we'll do written 360s, or it's really building the muscle and reinforcing it, and getting really, really good at saying, when someone comes to you to vent about someone else, right? Wonderful. What did they say when you told them?
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
But not go
Barbie,
and solve it
told
for them.
I can't tell them.
Yeah. But don't go try to solve it for them.
Right.
Right. Don't be the hero. Really help them be their own hero and navigate relationship. Now there's exceptions, of course. If someone comes to you complaining harassment, or none of that applies. But but in general, right, we need to get much better at talking to people, and then it's not as big of a deal. One of the hardest conversations and feedback points for me that I had, that I love remote work for, because I never have to have it when I'm on Zoom, is you have body odor. Right? That is one of the hardest feedback. I mean, are we right? Like in HR, right? Isn't that the hardest conversation to have, is like tell someone they stink?
Yeah.
And when anyone has someone on their team who stinks, they come to HR to say, you have to solve this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Always. Yeah.
And I always tell them, like, who was in the room and who smelled it? And it's like, well, me. And I'm like, okay, so do you think that the person's going to respond better to this, that you left the room, went and talked to HR about it, and then HR told them? Don't you think that's more embarrassing for them than you just to say, hey, I don't know if you
Barbie,
want to.
I don't want to have the conversation. So,
but again, the feedback is not about you; it's about the other person, right? And you have to give it in a way that's selfless. So, so I really try to push people to understand, like, what if it was you? Would you want to know that I had gone and escalated this to your manager? Would you want to know that I went and escalated this to HR? Or would you rather have me first just tell you that I don't understand why you can't get your project done on time? We had a due date on Monday. It's Wednesday now, and I haven't heard anything back from you. Can I trust your commitments? Because I'm worried I can't.
Yeah, I love.
You know, why can't we do that?
I love just the idea of just have the conversation, and the way that you frame that there. You know, don't you think it would be more embarrassing if, or whatever? That's an empowering way to start that conversation. You know, we teach a model in our feedback workshop that's called the art of feedback, and it's action, repeat, trust, the sort of 3 levels of conversation. Ruby always calls it the heat index, because an action conversation, it's the first time a thing happened. It's not yet a pattern. So it's the easy one. It's the easy conversation to have. And leaders will skip it. They will kick the can down the road.
They wait till it becomes a pattern. And once it becomes a pattern, that person has a reputation. Once you have a reputation, it's nearly impossible to change.
That's right.
So you can't wait for the pattern to develop. Otherwise, that's horrible for the person who now has this reputation of whatever it is. And they have to basically leave the company and start over to fix that reputation.
Right. Yeah. And Ruby just typed in the chat, just orthogonally here, so many people I coach, she says, who don't say anything, and then they want to leave the company without ever giving a chance for their manager or leader to do something different. Like they never invite them into the conversation.
Yeah, they never do. I'm going to be rude. I'm going to get up and let my dog in.
Do it.
So I will be right back. I can still hear you and I can still talk, but she's knocking at my door. And so that's the nice thing about working at home too, is you can meet people's pets and animals. And
it gives me a chance to almost see the guitar and the painting behind you. I keep trying to look.
Really, almost.
Oh yeah, like, I don't know which way do I move so you can see that. I don't know if I can.
I'm like, it's a Strat neck. It looks like a Jaguar. I'm dying to know what it is.
I wish I could tell you. Those are soundboards to absorb sound, so that I don't wake my husband up when I'm on early meetings. Yeah.
Nice. So, just thinking about these elements of culture, right? Feedback is one, and you have a deep expertise in remote work. We've talked about remote work dozens of times here, right? Ruby and I work for an organization that's always been remote. We've never had an office space. This is my 11th year, her 9th there. So
great.
It made sense to me. I had worked in organizations. I worked with the CFO one time, and she was a dyed in the wool, if your butt's not in the seat, you are costing the company money mindset. There's been a lot of push-pull here over the last couple of years on remote work. We saw whole sectors, right? The financial services sector of the economy, they were the first ones to go, everybody needs to get back, right? And we've been talking with our clients about their return to office plans, and they're still not finalized. They're still moving pieces around. So how do you, when you think about remote work, obviously you can posit the upsides of it. So what makes remote work worthy of consideration from your perspective?
I have a couple different perspectives on this, and one of them has nothing to do with the health of your company. So I think there's a lot of things that are good for the company in terms of you can grow without limitation of space. You can hire the best talent wherever they are. You can have more diversity. You can even have cost savings in the cost of talent because different cost of living. There's all these great things for the company that the company consider. I actually think it's a moral obligation for software companies to embrace remote work. So when Elon Musk
say more about that.
Yeah. So when Elon Musk says it's immoral to have people work remotely, I couldn't disagree more. Do I want my car built in someone's garage? No, that didn't go well for the Titan submarine. That was terrible. So I don't want that. So I get it from the Tesla side. I get it from the SpaceX side that this doesn't work. I don't get it from the Twitter side whatsoever. And when I think about the homeless and mental health and drug issues we have in San Francisco, I don't know if any of you have been to San Francisco lately.
Oh yeah.
I was just in Paris and someone was commenting on Paris and I was commenting on how clean it is and how safe it is. And they were like, what? It's not, it's dirty. I don't know where they were from, but it was somewhere cleaner, maybe Singapore. And I said, well, gosh, compared to San Francisco, it's pristine.
Yeah.
San Francisco is horrible. If you took every Salesforce tower across this planet, because they're in various different countries, if you took Twitter headquarters, if you took the headquarters of these SaaS companies and you made them drug treatment facilities, you made them mental health facilities, you made them halfway houses, you wouldn't, Mark Benioff wouldn't need to donate millions of dollars to UC Berkeley to study the causes of homelessness. We know. Right. We can do something about it though. And so really, I feel like software workers in general have a requirement to stop plucking the best and the brightest out of their communities and making them move to the coast. Like, why can't you let the best and the brightest stay in their communities, stay contributing tax revenue, stay as role models and mentors to the young people in that community, continually frequently the restaurants and the dentists and the hairstylists in their community? When I was at Netflix, my dentist, my doctor, my hairstylist was all in Los Gatos. I live 40 miles away in Pleasanton, which is about 2-hour commute.
Right.
So I couldn't do any of that in Pleasanton. But when I worked remotely, I could. COVID was the worst remote experience that people could possibly have. The value of working remotely is having a stronger community. We weren't able to socialize with our communities. We weren't able to go to our hairstylist or our restaurant or our dentist or, so we didn't get the gains of it. We lost our social connection at work and we also lost our social connection at home. And so it was really a really bad place to be. And especially when you're trying to work with your kids, trying to do schoolwork in the next room, it wasn't positive. I don't think school should be remote for most kids. I think that I think kids should go and be interacting socially. I think companies who have remote need to do social engagements, whether they be localized or global. At GitLab, every 9 months, we got the whole company together with their spouses and partners. And it was a social week. It wasn't a get work done week, because the worst thing you can do is wait to get work done until everyone gets together, because then no work's getting done the rest of the year. So you got to make sure when you get together, it's not about getting work done or making decisions. You need to make those in your normal environment. But I really do feel like there's amazing talent across this planet, but there's not equal opportunity across the planet. And software companies are in the position to change that more than any other industry is. And that includes finance, by the way. Most of finance stuff can also, how many people actually go to their bank these days and withdraw cash, right? I mean, there's this fear of it. And what I don't understand is why. And I get a lot of time where I can't trust that they're getting their work done if they're not in their office. I think, okay, so if I'm sitting in front of my computer, I'm not on Instagram or Facebook. Right. I'm being productive if I'm sitting in front of you, right? That's no brainer. And you can't trust me, but it's okay to not trust me in the workplace when I'm walking to the parking garage after dark with my coworkers and you don't trust any of us, but I'm going to walk to my car and feel safe. So I really challenge that. Now, there's a lot of technology that happened with COVID that helps you spy on people, but I think it's a shame you have to use it. I think if you don't trust someone, don't hire them.
I've always felt that whole, I can't be sure that they're being productive unless they're in front of me.
how are you measuring productivity? There needs to be a new way.
That's a leadership problem. That's not their problem.
And let me be clear. I can waste a shit ton of time in the office.
That's right.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And when they bring in ping pong tables and they're like, okay, well now I'm wasting even more time. So people have different preferences. So I think the great thing is the whole world won't make the same decision. So if you want to be in an office, you'll have that opportunity. But I really think that SaaS companies really should stress themselves out a little bit to think, how can we make this work? During COVID, we tried to survive remote work.
Mm-hmm.
Now we need to figure out how to thrive in it.
Yeah.
And we need to not go back to making horsewhips now that cars have been invented. We need to think, how can we take this moment and grow from it instead of trying to reverse back? Yeah. And I think I get on a soapbox and it's annoying that I do, but I really think that I think that's the moral imperative. When Elon says it's immoral because not everyone can do it, well, you know what, Elon, not everyone can go to the moon or drive a Tesla either. Does that mean you don't make them? Well, yeah. I mean, does that mean you're not going to make Teslas anymore because not everyone can afford one?
Yeah.
Right.
And by the way, if I get all the software workers off the road, I live right down the street from Fremont, where all the cars are made here. It was amazing how much healthier their environment got during COVID. The trees on the side of the road were actually getting greener and flourishing because it wasn't having the pollution.
Right.
Guess what happens if you get all the software workers off the road? And I don't just mean software engineers. I mean the finance people, the HR people, the marketing people. They're all off the road. Your teachers have a shorter commute.
Mm-hmm.
Your doctors have a shorter commute. Everyone who actually has to drive into work has less traffic to deal with.
Yeah.
So it's good for everybody. It's good for the environment. It's good for stress levels.
Yeah. I love the sort of ripple effects part of this conversation about those pieces that don't often get in the equation that matter.
One of my best recruiters when I was at GitLab was in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. The other was in Russia. What opportunity would they have?
Right.
And what growth and exposure do they get because there was a company willing to hire them remotely?
Mm-hmm.
And I really do think that if you're just even talking about the U.S., there are communities that are really struggling in the U.S. They're depressed economies because they don't have the same industry there.
Mm-hmm.
What does career day look like in these communities? I go to my schools and I talk about career day all the time. They get CEOs in the classroom. They get me in the classroom. They get every profession you can think of in the classroom in Pleasanton, California. Mm. What do they get in Spencer, Iowa?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so when you think about if you have these professions across the U.S., you have this profession as role model. So the kids in these communities aren't just looking at TV and saying, well, I can play football, basketball, be an actor. But they actually see all the careers they could be.
Mm-hmm.
And they get a feel for all of that. Mm-hmm. I think that's huge. And I think that's when we get equality in this world. Yeah. It's not redistribution of wealth. It's equal distribution of opportunity.
Yeah. I think that's a huge gap that doesn't get much attention.
Yeah.
So I have a question.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Larry.
Yeah. So I have a kind of more of a tactical question because I love this bigger, more, kind of society writ large kind of impact of decisions that especially large employers make. So companies like, SaaS companies or technology companies where innovation and the speed of movement and change and all of that is high. That's kind of my world in a very small organization, but innovation is a primary core pillar of what we have to do. And what we have found, we do have, generally speaking, pretty high level of trust in employees to be doing what they need to get done and having ways to measure that, right? Are the deliverables happening the way they happen? But innovation is a different bird, right? And there are a lot of collaboration tools that, especially since COVID happened, that more emerged in ways of virtual whiteboards and all of those things that are cool. And there is a visceral difference between being online with people, right, virtually trying to do that kind of activity, and being in a room with people and doing that activity. Or just the fact that every time I go into the office, which is usually about 2 times a week, I have conversations with people that I never would have had were I sitting at home, because I don't schedule conversations to have serendipity. And that's the thing that we're struggling with the most is how, because of that blend, right? We're looking for, how do we allow for all the goodness? I don't have a commute. I have flexibility to live my life. I'm trusted to do my job. But we know there is a gap in how we experience serendipity, collaboration, innovation, and it's a core piece of what we do. And so that's what we're kind of struggling with, is how do we find that sweet spot, and how do we help our leaders help their teams find that sweet spot? That's where we're really struggling right now.
It's really hard, and I think a lot of people are struggling with it. And I think it's wonderful that you're thinking about it versus saying, let's just not even try, which I think is what a lot of people are doing. In terms of the serendipitous conversations, you need to rethink the serendipity part of it, and how that can actually be bad. So, for example, when I was at Netflix, we were growing quickly. And when I joined, we were about 1,000 employees, and they grew more than that. And we needed new buildings. And it was now, where are people going to sit in the new building? And it was the biggest ordeal of, if I don't sit next to this group, then I won't get anything done. It was like, seriously, you can't just walk to the next floor. So the reality is, even in these buildings, we're not walking to the next floor to talk to our colleagues. We're not walking. I think they did research. If you're more than 100 feet away, people just send an email. So your serendipitous conversations were serendipitous with those who happen to be near you at the time, not necessarily the person that you would actually benefit from talking to, or benefit sharing those ideas with. When we're all on Zoom, we're all equal. Now, when you're in 60 countries, you have time zone differences and things, but the companies can also decide how distributed they want to be. But you have to not rely on serendipity. And you shouldn't rely on serendipity in the office either. You should put yourself out there more than that. And so in Zoom, you do have to make sure at the start of a meeting, you're not just going right straight into work. I love to encourage organizations to share pictures. I try to get everyone to always have some pictures on the ready. So when we get in a group meeting and someone says, "What did you do this weekend?" we can show a picture of our fireworks, or we can show a picture of, and because the picture speaks 1,000 words, and it helps people understand you and know you better. But take the time to, shoot the shit before, because what annoys me so much on Zoom and any online method, if we had a meeting together and we had to go to the same conference room for this meeting, we would sit in the conference room and we would chit chat until everyone got there. On Zoom, we leave cameras off muted until everyone gets there. And then when the owner of the meeting comes, we start. Why? Why aren't we using that time? So someone has to be the person who's willing to make a fool of themselves and say, "Hey, I'm here. What did you do this weekend?" And actually start having the conversation. You also need to, what I did at Love to Know is I did coffee and cab, because we had a bunch of people in Europe and a bunch of people in California. So we did coffee and cab, and it was a struggle for me. It was constant iteration on how to make this work. So it was meant to be social. We did it at GitLab too, and people could put what topic they wanted to share or whatever and share pictures. But it was like pulling teeth, getting people to share. Like if I ask you, like it's the small talk thing, talking about the weather, right? Trivia is huge in helping with this. So what I would do was I would send an email out. One example is send an email out to people at the company and say, "Everyone send me a link to their favorite song on Spotify or YouTube." And then people would send me the links. I would find it. I would use Kahoot, and I would take snippets of the song, and then I built the Kahoot around it, and you'd have to guess who sang it, or guess the year it was released, or guess the name of the song, or the title of the album, right? And so I ended up putting like 40 of these together. I now know I only needed 2. Because once we did one and played the song, and it was Billy Joel Piano Man, and everyone started talking about the Billy Joel concert they went to, or actually Garth Brooks was even better, it spurred the conversation. It got people actually talking and less thinking about what they were saying and just in the moment, right? For Christmas, I always do one for holidays around the world. What day of December does Ukraine celebrate Christmas? It's not the 25th. Did anyone know that? Right. And then take in Kwanzaa, take in Hanukkah, you take in the different holidays and what people are doing. And then people learn and they share their customs. You know, when you're a really global company and you ask about the way that they celebrate in Germany versus France, and people actually can talk about how they do that, it adds the organic conversation. It's the inorganic feel that it holds people back, right? So how can we create the water cooler conversation,
right,
without being around the water cooler? And then how much more quality is that built in than the water cooler did? Because it's no longer based on proximity.
right.
It's just
And
based on access
right.
to the same link.
Right.
Right. So you really can get to know more people. And it was funny when I was at GitLab, the people that I worked with at GitLab, now that I've left, I remain in touch with more than anybody I work with at Netflix.
Really?
My
An all virtual company.
Yeah, because they're just as accessible to me.
Mm-hmm.
You say you leave the building, out of sight, out of mind. Well, I never left the building.
Right.
We can still hop on Zoom. We can still, you tell me people can't socialize, look at Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
You tell me people can't socialize online, look at Snapchat.
Yeah.
You absolutely can. Right? But it is being more deliberate about it. And it is turning cameras on and encouraging people, please don't have cameras off. Please have cameras on. How many people, if you walk into a conference room and they put a black bag over their head so you wouldn't see their faces, would that be acceptable? But it's acceptable on Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I see Mark putting his camera back. Didn't mean to shame you there, Mark.
I'm holding out, Mark.
But it's just those things that we have to get more comfortable with. Now I understand if we've got people in India, they're 12 and a half hours ahead of me.
Yeah.
If I'm asking you to be on a meeting at 2 a.m. your time, yeah, maybe putting the black bag over your head's okay. Right? Because it's not fair to think that you're ready for this meeting, right? But the more that so much of communication is nonverbal, right?
Yeah.
And while it's not perfect on video, it's a whole lot better than on the phone. To be able to see facial expressions and see hand expressions and things. So we just have to keep at it. We have to not give up. We have to keep trying new things. We have to share what works. There should just be a site that shares what works on connecting via Go. It shares what works via, and you'll get a lot of companies saying, "Well, it's my product that will solve it for you." Do not. I don't know if you guys have used Donut on Slack. So Donut is an app on Slack, and it stands for "Do Not Be Strangers." So the donut's the do not, and it'll randomly each week, each month, whatever you set it for. It'll send you a Slack message along with one other person at the company and say, here's who you're matched up with this week.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you chat? Right. And so it helps you spur those connections. There's a lot of little things like that, right? Let's share the ideas. Let's share the pros and cons. Let's share the costs. Let's just, Yeah. Let's be out there. I love that. Your boss is in her jammies so many times. It's pressure. I love that too. It's like, we don't need to hide who we are. I don't if my dog barks right now, great. You got to hear what my dog sounds like. They're both, I have 4 dogs. I've got 2 of them laying at my feet right now. That was a slippery slope.
My dog, I have 2, I have 4.
Well, I've got 2 in there right now. I've got 2 outside. Yeah. I'm a crazy dog lady.
Barbie, as we sort of get close to the top of the hour here, give us just sort of the elevator pitch on your book. What's the value proposition? Why should we read it?
I think any reason that you read books, I depends if you want to read or not, right? I don't know. I think that if you want to feel inspired, if you want to feel, maybe challenged to think about it in new ways, if you want to see the impact that your leadership has on other people, I think a lot of that I've got in the book, and I make myself vulnerable in it, but I mention other people as well. I don't think it's anything crazy or new idea or something's never thought of before. But I think my hope is that it motivates and inspires and empowers you to be better for those around you and to build a life for yourself that is better for you as well.
Love it. Where can we find you out on the worldwide interwebs?
Well, you can find the book on Amazon, and reviews are great too. I think I've got one right now, but it's a 5. Yay. I don't know who wrote it. The nice thing is it was a stranger, not my husband, so that's good. And then I have a website, barbiejane.com, that you can also find me on. You can also buy the book there if you prefer to buy directly from the publisher. Yeah.
Awesome. I always leave time for questions, and I watch Ruby write things down, so I know Ruby always has a question because she never doesn't. So Ruby, what's your question for Barbie today?
Okay. This is kind of connected to what we're just talking about, being on Zoom and being with people and building connection. I always talk about deep presence as leaders, being like deeply present with people and intentionally intentionally pouring your energy
Engaged
into a conversation. Right. And like, so I would just love any other tips that you have for being like demonstrating deep presence and the importance of that.
Well, I think that I agree with you that it's important that whenever you're talking with someone, they feel like your attention is on them, not they're distracted by other things. I think that it's easy to have happen on Zoom because you've got other windows open behind you and things like that. I think it happens in rooms too when people get on their phones and and talk. But I think closing things when you're going in a meeting, close your other windows. Sometimes you can't help it because they're going to reference a document, you're going to screen share and things like that. But as much as you can, make sure you have Slack. If you use Slack at your company or whatever messaging, make sure that's integrated with your calendars so that it automatically shows people you're in a meeting when they're messaging you. If it's an important one, I turn off notifications as well. And that way, if someone's notifying me, they know I'm not paying attention to you right now. So it's not anything too drastically different, but it's showing that. And then of course there's communication style, right? Being able to repeat back in different words what someone has shown to you that you get understand. It's all that basic communication stuff too. Yeah.
It's kind of one of my hot buttons, the multitasking, especially on Zoom, because you can just see if I look over here.
Or you see, like, just watch, you'll see the color of my face change because I just big old.
I never noticed that before.
But that is such a self-discipline thing about what am I here for? Like, what's important in this moment? I know I have all those things. And if there's something on fire, then I should tell this person, can you give me 5 minutes?
Absolutely.
Just hang out, right? Don't try to squeeze it in while you're not listening to them.
Don't try to fake it and make me think you're listening. But that's I think that's an overall societal issue right now. That we all live in these highly distracted lives. I'm not even capable of watching a TV show with my family without doing something else at the same time. I can't. It's like I literally will get bored. I can't watch the show. I have to do something else.
Because there's nothing good on.
Wow. Oh, well, this has been super fun. Thank you so much. Her name is Barbie Brewer. The book is Lead and Let Live. Thank you so much, Barbie, for being with us today. This has been super fun. We are going to do our funny things, good feel story, and semi-quarantine cocktail. You are welcome to hang out or go live your life. It is entirely
I'm going to hang out. I'm going to hang out. I'll mute myself, but I'm going to hang out. I want to see what this is like.
All right. I can feel your expectations right now. You're going to want to lower them. You're going to want to lower them from wherever they are right now. Today's funny things. Funny thing number 1. This made me laugh. I like it when things make me laugh while I'm taking a drink and I can't help but to snort whatever fizzy water beverage I'm drinking. Sometimes I think about the guy at my poker table in Vegas who was kicked out after the pit boss said he was too high. Security came over and they asked him to say the alphabet starting with M, and he replied, Malphabet. And he was escorted from the room. Funny thing number 2, what kind of turtle is this? From the creative dads department, asked my husband how everything was going, and he sends me this picture.
I love it.
Funny thing number 4, this is real. There is a person named Happy Gilmore who just committed to Ball State Golf. And this was tweeted by Adam Sandler. Go get him, Happy. Pulling for you.
Oh my God. That's
Is that true?
Yeah. It's a thing.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
I guess I can't judge. I'm Barbie.
And my favorite funny thing today, the HOA in my friend's neighborhood recently threatened her neighbors with a fine if they didn't hide their trash cans, even though they'd been in the same spot for over a decade. This is their solution.
That is awesome.
I want to do that now.
That is fantastic. There you go.
Today's Good Feel story, it's Steve Hartman doing his thing. Let's watch.
Finally, tonight, CBS's Steve Hartman goes on the road with a Memphis gym owner who found building muscle is nothing compared to building someone's character.
It's okay.
Here at the God Body Gym in Memphis, owner Roderick Duncan says real change never happens overnight.
10.
But he says it always starts in an instant.
7.
Or in this case, an instant
4.
cup of coffee.
2. Time.
A few months ago, Roderick says he noticed someone behind his gym.
Saw this guy sitting in the vehicle.
He says the man was sleeping in one of his old cars.
Homeless? Homeless guy, he had to be.
So, camera rolling, he opened the door and told him to get out.
Come on, get up out my car, man.
And because the door doesn't lock, the next day, same problem.
Look at you, man.
And he kept coming back.
He kept coming back.
And so it went, until Roderick tried a different approach.
Before I could knock on the window, I said, you know what? I came back in here, I made him a cup of coffee.
And on those grounds, Roderick began to build a relationship with 24-year-old Brian Taylor. He learned about his troubled childhood and his drinking problem, and then got him some clothes, took him to get an ID, and drove him to job interviews. He even gave him a spot on his couch.
Brian says he couldn't be more grateful, but he doesn't always show it, whether not following the rules or violating a trust. Roderick says there have been many times over the past few months where he's told Brian, that's it, that's the last straw. And every time, it's not.
Some people need more than one chance. You know, some people, it takes a while for most kids to stop bumping their head. You always have to work on you.
And that patience may be the greatest gift he's given this young man.
Everything you did yesterday is what got you in the situation today. So everything you do today is going to be preparing you for tomorrow.
And both men agree. Tomorrow is looking brighter.
I got a job. I got more confidence. I got a smile on my face.
Good thing. Because Roderick says if Brian messes up one more time, he's done helping.
That's it.
Why do I not believe that?
Well, I don't believe it either.
Unconditional love.
It's crazy.
Forgiveness to a fault. Steve Hartman on the road in Memphis.
I love Steve Hartman. I think those stories are so good, and I'm happy to share them with you. Today's semi-quarantine cocktail is called How Long? It's a riff on a cocktail called the Roller Coaster that only has 2 ingredients in it. You're going to need a little bit of amaretto, 1 Fireball looping coaster, and you can see the picture here. That's where it got stuck. A little bit of grapefruit juice. 1 Wisconsin festival. Put everything into a shaker, and this Fireball got stuck and stayed that way for 4 hours.
Oof.
Garnish and serve. Everyone was okay, but I'm not sure anybody wanted a drink after that. Because, come on, man. 4 hours upside down in Wisconsin. I'm sure I had cheese curds too. So that's the thing. Thanks everybody for being here today. Putting up with my sick voice. Thanks to Barbie Brewer. Lead and Let Live is the name for a book. Go check it out. It's dinner time, everybody. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Thanks. Bye, y'all.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you had a good time and learned a thing or two at today's happy hour, please share it with your friends. If you want to join our tribe, head on over to skyteam.cloud/TCB or email us at info@skyteam.com. That's SKYE team.com. Thanks again, and remember, you've always got friends at the Corporate Bartender.